I want you to open your mind.
I've almost come to the conclusion that the story is level in scope, atheistic in character, ruthless in purpose, and insidious in method.
We are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on public means for expanding its sphere of influence
And change the minds and the attitudes and the beliefs of the people to bring about one world socialist totalitarianism. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists.
It has patterned itself after every dictator who's ever planted the written and printed book on the pages of history since the beginning of time.
If you can get people to consent to the state of affairs,
You are children to be educated. They do not want you to think too much.
it was learned that the aliens have been and was in manipulating masses of people through secret societies, witchcraft, magic, the occult, and religion.
They reach into our children in music, television, books.
I am not children's innocence.
How can I disprove lies that are stamped with an official seal?
So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it feels like an altar to an alien god.
Genetic power is the most awesome force the planet's ever seen. You wield it like a kid that's found his dad's gun.
The Air Force has just announced that a flying disc is now in possession of the Army.
So many others know what's happening out there. And no government agency has jurisdiction over the truth. Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails. Which makes the show look bad. Just either don't listen or sign up to the advertising-free archive, which is linked up under each and every episode of The Secret Teachings. So this is a very strange week for me. It won't be for you, but I am in the process of moving my life. And it's all positive, it's all good, but as a result of that, I have very limited time, consistently 7 days a week, including the best of shows and weekends. And if I don't do a show, there's nothing new to download, so unless people go and scroll through the archive or listen to last week's shows, I don't make anything at all. So I can't take nights off, I can't take episodes off, and if I do, I usually put up a best of, but I can't do that for 5 days in a row. So this week, instead of taking the week off or stressing myself too bad, this week, Monday through Friday, and the next week, we'll be back to normal, 2 hours, as long as God wills it. Nothing will be any different. So we're not going anywhere. I don't know why so many people think that I quit radio. I don't know how these rumors get started in radio. People think other radio hosts I know quit radio. I didn't quit radio. It's my job. It's my life. It's my personality. I wouldn't know what to do if I didn't do radio. So I'm going to do the show. Just this week will be 1 hour each night. And we have a bunch of different topics. I thought we could talk about the Pope situation. I thought we could talk about the, let's call it the Weimar years of the United States. There are now feminists that are pushing kind of an opposite of the Weimar Germany. And they're pushing that young girls should not have sexual relations until they're, I guess, married now, which I thought was a conservative thing. Now it's a liberal thing because of the politics of the country. Because someone was elected president, suddenly girls don't want to have sex anymore until they're married. I thought that was what the whole conservative idea was anyway. And also the decline of dating apps. So I've seen some things related to those subjects that we'll probably do a show on. I also have a show, of course, planned on the release of the Epstein files, where we're going to do a much clearer and much more. How do you know the Pope's dead? I got insiders. What did your insiders say? They told me not to tell anybody, but then there's like 50 other people who also have insiders who told them the Pope was actually dead. And it's one of these issues where, okay, if he was dead, I don't really see why everything has to be turned into a giant conspiracy. I mean, sure, if a pope dies, you might not learn right away. If a president dies, you might not learn right away unless you see them get shot. I mean, there's a lot of PR that has to be done with a president, with a pope, with a queen. So yeah, sure, I mean, Elizabeth might have been dead a few days, or sure, Francis might end up dead, or might be dead.
Or then there's other conspiracies. If they say he's dead, then others will say, no, he's actually alive. And I just can't put up or tolerate any of it. Which, at this stage, the Pope is a key figure in the movement toward globalization. Just like David Rockefeller and Henry Kissinger. Pope's probably a little more secretive than Kissinger and Rockefeller, though. But Pope Francis is one of these guys who, again, when he dies, and he will die at some point, sooner than later, because he's not a young guy. He was born in 1936. He's almost 90. When Pope Francis does die, you know what's going to happen, right? You know what's going to be said, right? You're going to hear all the same things that I just explained to you with Kissinger and with Rockefeller. It'll be, well, the White Hats got into the Vatican, and they gave him, a disease, or they killed him. And the Vatican doesn't want you to know that. I can write these conspiracies. They're so naked now. I can write these conspiracies. They're so brazen in their idiocy now. Really, the Queen was killed by the White Hats. This woman was like a dinosaur. I think her body finally gave out. She was, she was almost 100 years old. She was 96. It is kind of strange that leaders tend to live, really iconic leaders, popes, queens, movers and shakers like Kissinger, they tend to live a long time. Elizabeth II ruled for just, we're talking like a year under what the average lifespan is for an American male and soon to be American female. She ruled for 70 years. The average lifespan for an American male is 71, 72. This woman was on the throne longer than most men live. Now, there could be lots of reasons for that. We can also find plenty of cases of people that died pretty young. If Kennedy died in Dallas, then yeah, he died pretty young. He was shot, but people die young. People die young all the time, and young is relative, but it's the conspiratorial element of this that gets me. Because I already know what's coming. When Francis is announced dead, people will say he's not dead, he's actually alive. Because he was already find an abundance of examples like this. The Russell Brands. That's not independent reporting. That's not alternative media. That's the mainstream media masquerading as the alternative media. One version or another. So, obviously, people don't trust these sources of information, but you shouldn't trust the alternative sources of information any more than you should trust the mainstream, because they're dying. Hollywood's dying. That's why Hollywood has shifted to your streaming platforms. The mainstream media has shifted to alternative and social media platforms and ethnicities. White, black, Asian, Italian, cardinals from all over the world who are up for this position. And usually there is a black, like a physically black candidate. This time it's Cardinal Fridolin Ambongo Besungu, 65-year-old from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Black Pope. Now when you say those words, Black Pope, people pay attention for one reason or another. Some probably think black as in, yes, the skin color. Others think black as in something secretive, something hidden, like a black budget program. There's a black pope, a real pope who actually has operational control of the Vatican. It's not so much the face of the Vatican like, in our case, recent history, Francis. So who might be the next pope? And when Francis, for example, the visions of St. Malachy from the 12th century, he received a vision which revealed to him that there would be 112 popes more after the period of time he lived in. It's about 1139 AD. And that the last pope would be a black pope. Pope Francis black as in skin color, black as in something behind the scenes that is controlling the Vatican. This is a very important thing to address. This is a very important thing to try and nail down, because if you're running around talking about a black pope in conspiracy land, obviously people have all sorts of different interpretations. Many people who talk about this and discuss this don't have any concern for the fact that saying black pope implies many different things. Our friend Leo Zagami also wrote a book, Pope Francis, the Last Pope, with a question mark, talking about this very thing, and obviously with Mr. Zagami, more complex details of the inner workings of the Vatican and the theocracy that it is. So when I'm looking at this story, I want to understand what exactly do we mean when we say black pope. Does that refer to a Jesuit? Does that refer to clothing? Does that refer to skin color? Because if it refers to skin color, well then maybe Cardinal Besungu would be the next pope. But there was also a black guy that was nominated or was in line before Pope Francis was selected. And there's discussions on which way you can really interpret this prophecy, because this prophecy, as it's referred to as prophecy, this prophecy is kind of a little bit, shaky, like all prophecies are, in the same way that, words like Israel doesn't mean a tribe, unless you're talking about the tribe of man. Like Israel means those people who interact with and have communion with and sometimes conflict with God. That's everybody, though. That's even atheists. They have probably the biggest conflict with God. I mean, Israel is everybody on planet Earth. It's like saying that the children of Earth, Mother Gaia, her children. We're all the children of Gaia. We're all the children of Israel. Because the word means different things in different contexts, in different languages, in different meanings, different interpretations. Same thing with the Black Pope. Pope Benedict, first pope to officially resign. He became Pope following the death of Pope John XII. Benedict XII years Pope lasted just 33 days. He's the 10th shortest reigning Pope. But there were some other popes that might have resigned before, including Pope Pontian. He was one of the earliest cases of a pope resigning. Served 230 to 235 AD. Found himself in an untenable position of leading the church while he was in exile. So you've had a lot of popes resign. It's not completely unheard of to have a pope resign, and certainly not to have a pope die in office, because, well, the majority of popes, the mass majority, they retain that office until they die. There have been some questions of whether or not Pope Francis would resign because of his health. There have been some questions whether or not Pope Francis had stepped down because of his kidney problems or his lung problems. Now, I don't think, logically, I think it's because you got to try to control the members of Congress, handlers that wheel them around in a wheelchair or whatever it is. Pope Francis has been seen in a wheelchair, so you can't walk. So you have handlers. Just because you have a handler doesn't mean that they're controlling everything to do, but they have handlers. Which brings us back to the idea of the Black Pope, because a lot of folks think the Black Pope is like someone who actually controls the Pope. And then there are theories on, other kinds. There's a pink Pope, and there's other types of popes that have almost like regional authority within the church. When you read about the history of the Catholic Church, it's a really fascinating history. In fact, the whole history of Christianity is fascinating, because Christianity initially was a very pure or well-intentioned movement